Welcome. Today, I want to invite you to join us on an archaeological dig here in Freedmen's Town. What we're doing out here is historical archaeology. We're looking for artifacts that can tell us the story about what life was like here in Freedmen's Town in the years following emancipation. So after slavery ends in Texas in 1865, Juneteenth, many African Americans moved from the rural plantation landscapes and they moved to locations like this here in Freedmen's Town. But what were their lives like? What things did they buy for themselves from the stores? What things did they continue to do, that craft activities that they knew about from the plantation and rural landscapes, like shell and bone carving? What type of plants did they grow here in the gardens? These sorts of answers aren't necessarily written down in the history books. History books can be one-sided sometimes. They can marginalize certain groups from written history. And so historical archaeology, even of the recent past, proves to be a valuable aid in fleshing out the history of certain groups, including the African Americans across the Caribbean, across South America, across North America. What were their lives like of these African diaspora populations? So what we're hoping to find here in this particular test unit are artifacts related to the life of Peter Stanton. Peter Stanton moves here in 1867. He is a carpenter, and so he helps build some of the first homes here in Freedmen's Town. And so what we're expecting to find in the test unit are artifacts that are related to carpentry. I've excavated several carpenters' yards from New Orleans, so I'm expecting to find something similar here. A lot of nails, broken pieces of tools, and lots of shaved wood. But also just artifacts reflecting Peter Stanton and his family's consumerism. What did they buy? What did they make for themselves? And early on, if we've only been excavating here for 2 weeks, one of the things I've noticed that's come up in the test unit are bits of worked bone. So we have bits of worked cow bone that's been smoothed down on one side. And what would people use cow bone for? Well, it's inlays into things like flatware, like knives and forks and spoons. And it also goes into pocket knives. And so these sorts of things, these artifacts individually, they're interesting, but collectively, they tell a story. It's like a crossword puzzle. And with historical archaeology, that crossword puzzle is super complex, and it paints a really vivid picture about the past because it's an intersection not only of the broken pieces of yesterday, but also from historical records like maps, journals, newspaper articles, and collected oral narratives, stories people have passed down over the generations. And so that's what we're doing here. We're going to piece together the life of Peter Stanton through the artifacts as well as through the historical record.
Today is day 6 of this dig, and we are at level 2, subsection A, and the depth is 16 to 20 centimeters. And so far we found this feature-like grayish gravel towards the northwest, so that's kind of like what we're brushing into at the moment.
We found lots of ceramics, ironstone ceramics, nails, brick fragments, shell fragments, building materials, some bone, some possibly worked bone.
We're starting to delve down now 5 more centimeters, and we're going to see where that puts us in history, because right now we're in early 1900s.
We found glass fragments, we found wallpaper fragments, we found the sole of a shoe.
Welcome back. This is halfway through the semester, and the test unit is turning up some really interesting finds. We're getting the whole range of household artifacts, plus some other activity area artifacts. We know we're coming down on a floor, so there's gonna be an intact flat surface just an inch or so beneath where we're digging, where we have it revealed later today. But what's coming up around it makes me think that it's a backyard pad for something that involves a kiln or an oven. We're getting slag material and burnt material and a lot of ceramic tiles and burnt brick. So I think there was an activity going out here, either a cooking spot, an outdoor kitchen area, or something else for a craft activity that requires heating things. So maybe not a brick kiln, but something else, and we'll know in just a few hours.
We are on day 9. We are currently in level 4 with a depth of 25 to 30 centimeters right now. And some of the big finds have been
some ceramic pieces, iron stoneware pieces, bone fragments, worked bone fragments. We found a especially interesting tortoise shell yesterday. What else?
a button.
Yes.
It was a seashell carved button.
And then we found a copper button, I think, as well, which both of them might have a maker's mark, which can kind of tell us what era we're reaching in the mud and dirt.
We are on day 12. It has been raining and super swampy out here, so every day we begin the morning hand pumping. We pump throughout the dig. The pit constantly is filling back up with water, so we've had some soil increases just because of the swelling of the water. So we've been on level 5 for a while. We found lots of pottery still. We've been finding more nails, so higher frequency of nails, a lot of square nails as well.
After 3 weeks of excavations, what have we found? Well, we know we're through most of the modern material. Closer to the surface, we had a mixture of modern plastics. Now, we only get one modern piece for 50 other artifacts we find. So there's still a little bit of disturbance. For the most part, we're down to an intact late 19th century, early 20th century deposit. And just today, we've excavated through a clay level down into a loose silty loam. That silty loam is going to be the original ground surface out here back from when Stanton first occupied this property. So we're down to a really exciting level. Everything on top of that was a subsequent or later time period sheet metal deposit. Now we're down onto a level where it's going to be all the stuff that was in his backyard after he built his first house and as he was building up his business. So the things that we were finding today, for example, is a ceramic marble, like a pottery marble. Those get started in the United States, at least, in 1870. We're finding square cut nails from 1880, 1890. So all those, again, point towards a late 19th century deposit. Now, everything we find underneath that sheet metal and everything that loose, dark black, loamy sand, loamy silt, all of that should be 1880s, 1870s, with only an occasional anachronistic artifact. Anachronistic meaning it comes from a later time period. And occasionally you get this. You get a tree root growing through the soil and it pushes along an artifact behind it. So you end up with one modern thing mixed in with everything from 1880, 1890, but you expect that. It's almost inevitable that you find the coolest stuff at the very end of a field school. It's almost never that you find it and you wrap things up, you're like, yeah, we're done. No, we're just now getting down to this layer of dark, black, loamy silt. And this organic layer of soil is going to be the intact floor or backyard deposit of the Peter Stanton property. Now, we only just gathered some artifacts from that the last time we dug. We haven't been able to dig for a little while now because of the rain. I love rain. I just don't like it when it messes up one of my archaeology digs. So today, and for the past couple of days, we've been processing artifacts in the lab. And this is a vital part of archaeology. It's one thing to dig up the artifacts, yeah, you accumulated them, but then that's only part of the story. You have to wash them and catalog them and analyze them. It's only after that that you can create an artifact narrative. You can tell a story about the past. But this takes looking at all the artifacts from level to level and then testing it to be able to talk about change over time. And so the next step after we finish this test unit, and right now we're processing the artifacts in the middle, is to enter them all into a database after we get them cleaned. And that database is a primary tool that allows us to talk about human lifeways in the past and change over time. Level 1 gets us back to the 1970s. Level 2 saw some artifacts turning up from the 40s and 50s. Level 3 had a mixture, so we're up against a fence line. Level 4 gets us back to the early 1900s, and level 5 is that transition point between the late 19th century, the late 1800s, early 1900s, and then that dark layer we're transitioning into, that black silty loam. That's going to get us back to the formation of things.
On level 5, we have found a bunch of like square shaped nails mixed with round shaped nails, as well as this 1930s beer tin can bottle. We were only able to find that out due to this cap right here that you see. And in the 1930s, beer bottles were only produced with this cap. No other drinks were like water, wine, etc. So that was a good indicator of what it was. And so far we're just kind of cleaning up all the bones to see if there's any worked bones, any butchered bones.
We're thankful for the opportunity that were given to us by Dr. Bruner at Lone Star College, the Yates Museum in partnership with Caring Friends and Deeds. So we're very happy and thankful for the opportunity.